In this video, we're going to learn about the null pointer value in C. Null is a special value in C that represents a pointer to nothing. It's used to indicate that a pointer does not point to any valid memory address that we can actually use. So because the null pointer value will never be equal to any actual memory address that we use, we can safely use it to have a pointer variable point to nothing at all. And this is important because pointer variables do not necessarily point to null or nothing by default. So for example, if we have here int star ptr, this will declare a variable named ptr, and ptr is a pointer to an int. ptr will store whatever value happened to be in memory when this variable was declared. So for example, if we had printf ptr colon %p \n and then ptr. %p will allow us to output the pointer value. We can save our program and then compile it. And if we run it, notice what we get here, 0x16. That's a hexadecimal number. It's a memory address. But notice that it's not nothing. It's something. Now, it would be a mistake for our program to try to use this memory address because our program doesn't own this memory address. It wasn't given to us by something like Malloc, for example. So, for example, if we had printf star ptr colon %d \n, and then here we have star ptr, and we try to dereference the pointer. If we save our program and compile it and run it, we'll get a segmentation fault error, and that's because our program doesn't own this memory address, and so it's not allowed to access it. So null is a special value we can use to indicate that a pointer points to nothing. So here we could have int star ptr is equal to null, and null is that special value. Now we can't dereference a null pointer either. The behavior there is going to be undefined, so we would just never do that. But now we have this special value null, and we can check our pointer variable to see if it doesn't equal null before dereferencing the pointer. Because if it does equal null, we know the pointer variable points to nothing, and we can't dereference the pointer. So here we'll have if ptr doesn't equal null, only then are we going to try to dereference the pointer. So we can save our program and compile it and run it. And notice this, our pointer variable now seems to store the value 0. And we didn't actually try to dereference the pointer because we detected that ptr was equal to null. And that's really the value of the null pointer. It allows us to indicate that a pointer variable does not point to anything. So for example, if we have a program that declares a pointer variable, and at some later time, we intend on initializing that pointer variable to point to some valid memory address. In the meantime, it would be a good practice to initialize that pointer variable to null. So that way it's known by our program that that pointer variable does not yet point to any actual memory address. So there's a bunch of instances where the null pointer value comes up. For example, functions might return null if they can't return a valid memory address. So for example, the function Malloc attempts to dynamically allocate a block of memory on the heap, and it returns the memory address for that block of memory. Let's try it out. Here we'll have #include stdlib.h, and then down here, let's use Malloc. We'll have ptr is equal to Malloc, and we'll pass it size of int to allocate space for one int value. And Malloc is going to return a memory address that we're going to store into ptr. And here we'll check to see if ptr doesn't equal null before we use it. Now, if ptr doesn't equal null, what we'll do is dereference the pointer and set the value to 5 here. Then we'll dereference the pointer again to output that value. Now, if Malloc fails, it's going to return null. So this check is actually pretty useful now because we're making sure that we actually have a valid memory address before we use it. Otherwise, we could have some sort of error handling here. We could output an error message like printf error ptr is null. So let's try it out. If we save our program now and compile it and run it, we get that the dereferenced PTR variable is set to the value 5. And that makes sense because we allocated space for one int, we took that space in memory, and we put the value 5 there, and then we output the value. But Malloc could actually fail, perhaps because the block of memory that's requested is larger than any that's available. So for example, here we could have multiply the size of an int by a very large number. So if we save our program now and compile it and run it, now we get error PTR is null, and that's because Malloc failed. Now obviously this case is a bit contrived, but this is why we use the null pointer sometimes. It allows us to make sure a pointer variable is actually pointing to a valid memory address. Now another area where this comes up is after we free dynamically allocated memory. So for example, let's switch this back. And here, I'm going to free PTR by calling free with PTR as an argument. What this does is freeze the dynamically allocated memory. It's going to make it available again for a program to use in the future. Let's output the value of PTR before and after this call to free. So here I'll have printf and then before free %p, and I'll output PTR, and then here I'll have after free %p, and I'll output PTR again. So if we save our program and compile it and run it, look at this. Before calling free and after calling free, PTR is still set to this non-null memory address. So calling free does not set our pointer variable to null. All it does is free that dynamically allocated block of memory. So if we plan on reusing a pointer variable after calling free, it's a best practice to set that pointer variable to null. So here we could have PTR is equal to null. And by setting this pointer variable to null after calling free, we're indicating to our program that this pointer variable no longer points to anything. It now points to nothing. So if we save our program and compile it and run it, we now see that after calling free, we've deliberately set the pointer variable PTR to null to indicate that it points to nothing. And again, this would be a good best practice to follow. If we don't do this, we would say that PTR would be a dangling pointer because it would store the memory address of memory that our program no longer owns, and it would be a mistake to access it. Now there's another situation where null pointers are frequently used. That's when we have data structures, like for example a linked list. So in a linked list, we have nodes that are linked to other nodes in a chain of nodes. For example, we could have node 1 linked to node 2, which is linked to node 3. And node 1 would be linked to node 2 because it would store a pointer to node 2. And node 2 would be linked to node 3 because it would store a pointer to node 3. But node 3, as the last node in the chain, would actually store a pointer to null to indicate that it is the last node in the chain. Let's go over an example of this. First up here, I'll create a struct. I'll say struct node, and then we'll have int value. So each node is going to store a value. Then we'll have struct node star next. So each node is also going to have a pointer called next that's going to point to the next node in the chain, except for the last node in the chain, which is going to point to null. Now down here, let's create a simple linked list using the struct. We'll have here struct node n1, n2, and n3. This will declare 3 struct node variables. We'll set n1's value member to 5, and we'll have n1 point to n2 by setting n1's next member to the memory address of n2. Then we'll set n2's value member to 6, and we'll set n2 to point to n3 by setting n2's next member to the memory address of n3. Now with n3, it's going to be the last node in the chain. So we'll have here n3.value is equal to 7, and then we'll set n3's next member to null. And this will indicate that n3 is the last node in the chain. When using a data structure like a linked list, we often want to traverse the data structure and visit each node in the chain. What we could do is start off with a pointer to the first node in the chain. We could then use that pointer to visit each node in the chain. We would know that we've reached the last node in the chain once that pointer is equal to null. Let me show you an example. Here I'll have struct node star traverse to declare a pointer to a struct node. I'll set it to the memory address of the first node in the chain, n1. Then we'll use a while loop to loop through the nodes in the chain. We'll have here while traverse doesn't equal null. We're going to say that we haven't yet reached the end of the chain. And then we'll first output the value stored at the node that traverse is currently pointed to with printf %d and then traverse arrow value. We're using arrow here instead of dot because traverse is a pointer to a struct. Then we'll set traverse equal to traverse arrow next. In other words, we're going to set traverse to point to the next node in the chain as given by the next member of what traverse is currently pointing to. Now, because the last node in the chain has a next member set to null, we know that eventually we're going to have traverse equal to null and the loop is going to stop. Let's try this out. Here I'll have printf and then linked list. And what we're going to do is continually use this next member to access the next node in the chain until next itself is set to null. So we'll save our program and compile it and test it out. And we get linked list 567 here. And our program is working. So we're successfully using null to represent and detect the end of this linked list. Now sometimes null is used to alter the behavior of a function by providing it as an argument. For example, the Realloc function works this way. Let's test it out. First, let's use Malloc to dynamically allocate space for an array. Then we'll use Realloc to try to make that block of memory bigger. First I'll put a new line here. Then I'll have int star array is equal to Malloc size of int times 10. And here we're using Malloc to allocate space for 10 int values so we can store an array of 10 ints. And Malloc is going to return the pointer, the memory address for this block of memory, and we're going to store that into the array int pointer. Then we could use Realloc to try to make this block of memory bigger. Here I'll have array is equal to Realloc and then array size of int times 11. So what this is going to do is use Realloc to take that block of memory and try to make it 1 int larger. Let's output the actual memory address stored in array before and after calling Realloc. Here I'll have printf and then before array colon and then %p and then we'll output array. Then down here I'll have after array and then %p and then I'll output array again. So we'll save this and compile it and run it and let's see what happens. We get before array is this memory address and after array is this memory address here. And notice that they're the same. That's because Realloc will try to just enlarge the existing block of memory. So after calling Realloc, array points to the same memory address, but the block of memory there is 1 int larger. So that's the behavior of Realloc when it's passed a non-null memory address as its first argument. If instead we pass null, Realloc will instead dynamically allocate space for a new block of memory entirely. Let's try that. Here we'll pass in null. We'll save our program and compile it and run it. And notice now that after calling Realloc, we have a new memory address for array. That's because it's a new block of memory entirely. You can see the difference here, 40 and 70 at the end there. Now the null pointer value will take up the same amount of bytes in memory as a pointer variable. That can vary from one system and compiler to the next. Let's test that out. Here we'll have printf, and then size of null, and we'll have colon %zu, and we'll output size of null. So we'll have size of and then null, and then we'll have printf, and for comparison's sake, we'll also output the size of a pointer to an int. So we'll have here int star colon %zu \n, and then size of a pointer to an int. So we'll save this and then compile our program and test it out. And in both cases, we get 8 bytes. So the size of the null value in memory will be the same as the size of a pointer variable. Now another property of the special null value is that if it's stored in 2 pointer variables of different types, and those pointer variables are checked for equality, we will get that those variables are equal. Let's try that out. Here I'll have car star, and then car underscore pointer is equal to null. And then int star, int underscore pointer is equal to null. So these variables have different types, but they're both equal to null. If we check them for equality, we will get that they're equal. So if we check if car pointer is equal to int pointer, we'll output here null pointers equal \n. So we'll save this and compile our program and test it out. And we get that the null pointers are equal. So that's another property of the special null value. Now in terms of what the null value is actually set to, in C99, which is the 1999 standard of C, we have that null is defined as 0 converted to a void pointer. So that's what it's actually defined as. The value 0 converted to a void pointer. So in other words, this means 0 converted to a void pointer. Another property of the special null value is that when it's compared to 0, it must evaluate to true. So if we check if null is equal to 0, this must evaluate to true as part of the C standard. Now that might make you think that null actually is 0, but that's not the case. Technically, null can be represented with any bit pattern. It doesn't have to be all zeros. So this is the null pointer value in C. Check out portfoliocourses.com, where we'll help you build a portfolio that will impress employers, including courses to help you develop C programming projects.